inflatable falcon.
Yes.
Yes, we want you to help us find the inflatable falcon. That is correct. So welcome everybody to the panel that we have created for all of you. My name is Ken. I'm going to be one of your hosts today, and if you recognize my NPR-esque and or Muppety voice, it's probably because you've heard me either on The Rambling Star Wars Fan. I'm a co-host on The Inflatable Falcon. And at the very end, I have my other co-host, if you'd be kind enough to introduce yourself to everybody, Mike.
So I'm Mike Hinton. I am the other co-host, pilot of the Inflatable Falcon podcast. We do live every Wednesday. This is way more professional than what Ken and I do every Wednesday, but if you tune in, it's a lot of fun. We usually start anywhere between 8 and 9 o'clock on Wednesdays live, and then and I didn't give Ken a bio, so that's why he went to me. All right, Ken, it's all you.
And I'm going to bring it here to my friend Sean Bradley. Sean Bradley is a Lancaster-based sculptor.
Wait a minute, I have to correct you. It's Lancaster.
Lancaster. Did I pronounce it wrong again?
I can't
Yes.
say Bennington.
Yes.
I stopped correct.
That's what happens when you're from upstate New York trying to talk about Pennsylvania. This guy has over 34 years of experience as a professional artist. His work is on display at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History and the Peabody Museum at Yale University. For 16 years, Sean Bradley's studio has manufactured costume armor and props for filmmakers, fans, and collectors, as seen on Paramount Plus, the Sci-Fi Network, the Discovery Channel, Spike TV, and in numerous fan films, even on Xbox Live. Sean has been a key contributor in the conception of one of the most popular processes used by cosplayers to create costume armor and has made extensive contributions to advancing technique and safety among self-taught costume makers. Sean has also been manufacturing low-cost kits of his costumes for a worldwide customer base that share the love of heroic characters, fantasy worlds, and futuristic technology. So give it up for Mr. Sean Bradley.
Thank you. Thanks.
You're very welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely.
And next to
My
Mike,
pleasure.
we got our buddy Matt. Matt Mickelson has worked as a camera crew member on countless productions to producing and running his own shows for broadcast television and live events in New York City, DC, and around the world. In between high-profile shows like The Who, Fleetwood Mac, Sam, did I miss that? Yeah. High-profile shows. What's the NYFW? That's what.
New York Fashion Week.
Oh, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Wow.
He's also worked with Keith Urban, Demi Lovato, Julie Andrews, and many, many, many other celebrities and music groups doing red carpet events and upfront network events. Matt produces storytelling videos and short films, documentaries for New York City, and is it Westchester or Westchester? I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right.
Westchester.
County corporations and other nonprofit organizations. And during the 2020 COVID crisis, Matt was called upon to produce several one-hour award and fundraising shows for the internet and live broadcasts, showcasing such talents as Winston Marsalis and jazz at the Lincoln Center. And he also has been working on a fan film called The Han Solo Chronicles, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So welcome to the program, Mr. Matt.
Thank you.
And so while I get our slideshow set up, what I'd like to do is start off with a very easy question. This whole panel is inspired by Star Wars to make things in the real world. So here's the question, and we'll start with Mike and work our way this way. The question is, Star Wars has been around since the 1970s. What are some of your earliest memories of it?
Okay, so my earliest memory is the Star Wars toys, and that's it. I mean, I saw the movie. I mean, that was definitely it. But the Star Wars toys is what stuck in my head. And Ken's talked about it. I think Ken had much more toys than I did. But, you know, that's what kind of kept me alive through all the Star Wars stuff when there wasn't movies. Matt?
What was the question?
What are some of your earliest memories of Star Wars?
Here's a weird. I was just thinking about this. I have this very vivid memory of being at a pool party when I was 6 and seeing the Time magazine with C-3PO on it before I even knew what it was, and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was that weird Woody Allen movie that was supposedly in the future, where he, you know, and I thought it was part of that. But I knew I wanted to see it, whatever it was, And then after seeing it, that it just opened up the floodgates of a different way I could use my imagination, because I was playing with Steve Austin dolls and action figures, and that was pretty much the ceiling, as far as using your imagination besides playing cowboys and Indians or army. That was it. And Star Wars just opened this floodgate of different ways to get out there. And because when we grew up, they pushed you out of your house for 12 hours and you played with sticks. And that was it, and the rest was all in your head, or you dig a hole somewhere out in a field or do something else stupid and dangerous that they had no idea about. So that was pretty much it.
Nice, thanks for that. How about you, Sean?
Well, I think that Star Wars was probably my first movie that I saw in a movie theater. My father and my mother went and saw it first in 1977, and as soon as they did, they ran home, they grabbed their 3 kids, and they said, "We have to show this to you right now," and took us back to the theater. Now, I was 2 years old at the time, so I'm not sure if I really have memories of that viewing, but ever since then, I think it's all been about Star Wars for me. I think what made the biggest impression on me is that the Star Wars universe looked lived in. It looked real and beat up, not sleek and shiny and brand new. It looked more like the world that I was used to. And as soon as I found out that there were people whose jobs it was to make all the stuff that was in that movie, I thought, well, that would be a fun thing to do. And kind of been trying to do that ever since.
So making stuff since then.
Yeah. And, a lot of it, of course, is as a kid, you're the collector of action figures, and you're fantasizing and thinking about, how to create those stories and reenacting things that you saw in the movies. And, Star Wars just had such a huge impression on us. Growing up in that generation in the 1980s, where everything that was in movies was practical effects. It was all handmade stuff. And, today everything's, it's a mixture of practical and CG and, special effects. But I think that I have always liked the idea of building these things with our own hands to recreate the world that we saw when we were little kids, what we fantasized about, these incredible stories and characters in this universe that we love so much.
With wacky, wild names like Snaggletooth and Hammerhead.
That's right.
And as Mike mentioned, I've been a toy collector for a really long time, and the toys were the things that brought my friends together. And I don't remember seeing the first Star Wars movies because I was also 2. I was born in 75, but I do remember having some of the toys and either playing with them in the yard or bringing them on the school bus and sneaking them into the cafeteria and playing with other friends and stuff like that. And I don't know if we recreated the scenes, but I do remember us using the action figures to tell our own stories. Like when Han Solo did that one mission where he rescued the Gonk droid from Greedo, and that's a story that should be on Disney Plus at some point. So thanks for that. And with that in mind, we'll go back to the other end. And so we talked about how some of the early memories. What is it about Star Wars itself that inspires you to make stuff? I mean, every person on this panel makes things with their hand or uses their voice to create things. So we'll start with Mike and we'll come back again.
Well, mine's a whole bunch of stuff, but I think of my kids. It gives me something to do with my kids. And then, honestly, meeting you 3. So when I look at Matt and the movie making and the fun and how many headaches he'd give me trying to plan shots and get stormtroopers together, but that was enjoyable because it lets you put Star Wars on a different level, like not at home. And then when I saw Sean, like I watched Sean at my house making a helmet, a beautiful helmet which he actually gave me, but watching his skill of that and sharing it with other people. Like we had a whole bunch of our people at our house. Just building stuff, and everyone was at a different level, and no one was judging anyone. Someone's cutting foam, and someone's cutting cloth, and Sean's making helmets, and everyone was learning from everyone and just having a good time. And then Ken, our NPR guy, the amount of knowledge and the joy it brings me every week to talk to Ken. If someone would have said to me, and we all do this, if someone would have said to me a couple years ago, you're going to block out 2 or 3 hours every Wednesday night to talk Star Wars with some guy in Jersey and some guy in Ohio, I would have said, I'm too busy, I don't have time. And it's a joy of the week when we get to talk Star Wars with people I would have never met. I would have never met any of you if it wasn't for Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what a lot of the building means to me.
Yeah. How about you, Matt?
Well, I think it's the one thing that steered me towards filmmaking in the first place, and I got into it kind of late, because where I grew up, if you weren't a cop, a doctor, or a lawyer, there was pretty much nothing else to do. Like Mike said, once I had kids and learned that I could share this and that they were actually interested in it, and one day they came up to me and they're like, "Hey, Dad, can we play with the green screen?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's a lot of work for Dad. Let's make this interesting. Let's maybe make a little Han Solo and his kids screwing around, and we'll show it to Grandma." And that's where this started, kind of thing. And then it started after I put it together and found all these assets on YouTube, like green screen animated ships and stuff. And I found I needed stars, so I Googled images, Starfield, and put that in the back. And all of a sudden it started developing into this little story. So I'm like, we need to go upstairs in the attic, put up the green screen. I have some story ideas. Let's go through this. And they're like, ah. So after writing some stuff with my kids and hopping around on the green screen, we had a 5-foot space to run around in our attic, and we just made this story of these 3 people getting in situations, and now it's a 30-minute movie, and then it led to another 30-minute movie, 40-minute movie that we've been shooting over COVID, and Ken I think said it perfectly while we're out there running around on a pile of dirt that looks like the desert, the White Cliffs of Kenoi over by Harrisburg. And you could go to this place. But he's like, yeah, this is exactly what we were doing when we were 7. We're just running around pretending we're doing a thing, and except we've got a few more bucks, to
and Ken didn't have
spend
pink
on
shorts.
costumes.
Ken didn't have the pink shorts, I don't
Yeah, and he even invested in pink shorts. And being able to now, make this stuff, because some of the equipment is cheaper than it used to be. It's more democratized, but it still takes a lot of work, because making films is like construction. You got to bring all these people and all these pieces and put them all together, and you don't know what you're going to get sometimes. So that's a long-winded answer, I'm sorry.
It's a great answer. How about you, Mr. Shaw?
What was the question again?
What is it about Star Wars that inspires you to make things?
Oh, well, I think, like I mentioned before, about the universe looking very lived in and very realistic, as opposed to a polished vision of the future. Everything looked very handmade, so when I was a kid, I think I owed a lot of my creativity to my older brother, Stu. He was the guy who was telling me which movies to watch and what music to listen to and what was cool and what wasn't. And in the early 1980s, all the rage at that time was painting lead miniatures for Dungeons and Dragons.
I still have those.
My brother was an expert at painting these tiny little details and these tiny little figures, and I remember trying to convince him to teach me some of that process and how it all worked, and he gave me a lot of lessons. And then it moved from painting the lead miniatures to repainting all of our action figures and adding extra details that weren't there in the out-of-box action figures. So we had our at Walker, and we started penciling in more wires and more lines and extra panel lines and rivets and things like that. All the way up to we had the Kenner 18-inch alien action figure, one with the jaws that came out of its mouth.
Big chap?
And yeah, so we used to take our Star Wars action figures and add a little layer of clay so that the alien could take bites out of the figures. And I think that set me down the path of wanting to not only learn how to make this stuff for real, but also to have a finer sense of detail. And when I eventually got into art programs in schools and whatnot, all of my teachers told me that you look at everything from about 6 inches away from it. Have you done that your whole life? And I was like, yeah, kind of. It all goes back to the lead miniatures and to the action figures. But I sort of became a detail specialist and working on these other projects. So, that has gone a long, circuitous sort of route back to me making Star Wars stuff again. I sort of let my career go the way I felt it should go, but then at a point I was like, I want to get back to doing stuff that's fun and cool and more satisfying to myself.
Yeah.
And now that I have the opportunity, I'm like, I miss making costumes and I miss making, props. And
This stuff is supposed to be fun.
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So if someone's making it not fun,
And one of the things you guys had mentioned earlier is, as a kid, it's exciting to find out that there are people that make these things, that people have a job to do this sort of stuff. So with that in mind, with all of the makers, whether we're talking about George Lucas or Dave Filoni or Phil Tippett, Ben Burtt, do you have a maker that has inspired you, and in what ways have they inspired you? For me, it was George Lucas. I mean, I'll give it to him from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because his ideas, he had to share with, whether it's Ralph McQuarrie that did the prototype pictures, or the folks who made the costumes like John Mallo. But all of those ideas started off in his noodle, and he had to tell a story to somebody else who then made something, and they have to go back and forth. So for him, he's the guy that kind of inspires me to do it. Is there any maker that
yeah, and it almost didn't happen. There are so many little happy accidents that came together that if anything was slightly different, if they changed the music, if they didn't go with the weathering, the world that they were living in, if they didn't, if they decided to use a popular actor instead of Harrison Ford, if they depended on the casting industry to put that movie together, it would have been something completely different. Christopher Walken would be Han Solo. And we would not be talking, right now about any of this. And the music would have been that all the other sci-fi in the 70s was doing at the time. And it would have, been kind of a Logan's Run thing, which happened for 5 minutes and then it was gone,
Well, I like the costumes, so I look at the makers who made the costumes, and like my favorite costume this week at least is the Sand Trooper. And I look at all the pieces that weren't finished, so they had to use different armor, and I like that detail that they just left it in. And then what Sean keeps saying is the lived-in part.
Yeah.
is just because when I grew up, if you wanted a stormtrooper costume, you got the helm, the plastic mask, and then it had a picture of a stormtrooper on the chest. That was about as good as you got.
Yeah, well, Ken, you mentioned Ralph McQuarrie, the concept artist who helped sort of take a lot of George Lucas's ideas and his writings and turn them into images. He was kind of the first guy who started to envision what the world of Star Wars would look like, and I'd say ultimately he's probably someone who's probably had the most effect on the stuff that I do. But there were some, before Ralph McQuarrie, there was Sid Mead. And Sid Mead was a futurist and a product designer and concept artist who worked on a lot of movies. He didn't work on Star Wars directly, but he inspired people like Ralph McQuarrie. A lot of the look of Star Wars comes from the stuff that Sid Mead had done probably 20 or 30 years before Ralph McQuarrie. But in terms of, my experiences making and sculpting and doing all that stuff, you have Brian Murr, who sculpted a lot of the original armor parts and the costumes. And there's another name there that people often forget, and that is Liz Moore. She was a female sculptor working in Hollywood at the time. She sculpted a lot of things. She made the Star Baby from 2001 Space Odyssey. And she also worked on Star Wars, sculpting a lot of the costumes.
She did C-3PO, I believe.
Yeah, she's responsible for most of the detailing and all that stuff on C-3PO. And she actually passed away. She died in a car accident 2 years after working on it. She never saw the movie finished. So I think about her story and how many people have kind of forgotten about her, but she had a great amount of accomplishment. I love going back and seeing the photos of the stuff that she worked on as well. Everyone else we know because they've become so famous from working on Star Wars, but someone like her, she didn't get to experience the success.
And one of the things that is quite amazing for me about it is these are not the people that are on the screen.
Right.
These are the people behind the screen, behind the screen, behind the screen that help create these things that people around the world remember. And what I'd like to now do is kind of shift from Star Wars and talk about some of the things that you're working on. So we'll start on this side. We'll start with Sean, and we'll have you talk about some of the things that you're working on, either Star Wars, because that's what we're here to talk about, or just, you know, prop making and costuming in general.
Well, I think one of the projects I'm most excited about right now is that I'm making costumes for a band called Galactic Empire. Thanks to some of the people on this panel for putting my name in the hat when they were looking for someone for the job. But
there's only one name to put in that hat. I'm just telling you. They asked me, and I said, your name came instantly. And I don't remember names. If you listen to my show, I mess up everyone's name. But when they said there was no other names in the hat.
Oh, well, thank you, Mike. That's flattering. Galactic Empire is a Star Wars themed heavy metal band, and they play very fast-paced heavy metal versions of all the Star Wars themes by John Williams. And they've been touring the country for, well, the most recent tour on this current album, they're going back out on their second world tour right now. But the band's been together for ages, and I remember Mike sending me a message one day saying, like, are you available? There's something you might want to be interested in working on. I have somebody who's looking for some costume work. And I said, oh, I'm so busy. I don't know if I can. And I remember you convincing me. You said, just listen to the guy. I think you'll make an impression and you might change your mind. And he said, it's Galactic Empire. I was like, I know those guys. I've been sharing their videos on social media for years. I love that band. I was like, they making costumes? And he said, yeah, all new costumes. They decided at a point that they wanted to get away from the copyright, the costumes that were copyright protected, and they wanted to do some original costumes in the Star Wars universe. And they had some concept art, and I said, so you got the art, you just need someone to sculpt and produce this stuff? I was like
teed it up for you almost?
It felt like a dream job.
Okay.
And, I've got to pal around with the band, and they're going to be playing in Lidditz, PA, which is nearby me, I think in another 2 weeks or so.
Yep.
But they actually played Las Vegas last night. Headlined at a casino on May the 4th. Cool. I wish I could have been there with them, but I just love the fact that they're out there, and hundreds of thousands of people maybe are seeing the costumes that I made for them. Actually, the black helmet that's in front of the table there, that's actually one of the touring helmets that went around the world on the first tour. So that is Blast Beat. He is the bass player of the band.
You have to follow Sean with his pictures of them, and it's really neat.
Yeah.
It looks like we have a question right here in the front.
Just a very quick question.
Sure.
I live not too far from Lidditz, so can you tell me, do you know where in Lidditz?
So the guys who run the band work at Rock Lidditz. They have an audio engineering company there called Atrium Audio, and they'll be playing at Mickey's Black Box, which is on the campus of Rock Lidditz.
So it's about 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't have the date on me right now.
Yeah,
But it's coming up pretty soon. But you can go to their Facebook page, Galactic Empire Band, I think.
I love Las Vegas to Lidditz. It's like.
Yeah, they're flying all around the world.
Good
It's
name
amazing.
for an album.
Yeah.
Is the rumor true that you were also involved with one of their more recent videos that came out?
Oh, yeah. I got to be a Jedi in one of their music videos. They did a cover of the Raiders of the Lost Ark soundtrack, or the theme song, and they decided they wanted to do a Star Wars Raiders of the Lost Ark crossover. And the day that we were shooting over at their studio, they had, put together a bunch of gags and things that they wanted to do. That they had like kind of loose notes of the ideas for the different segments, and they reached a point and they said, "Wait, we don't have a Jedi costume. Do we have one in storage? Do you know where it's at?" They're running around trying to find a costume, and I just sort of raised my hand sheepishly and said, "I have one. I can." And they said, "Do you want to be in the music video?" I said, "Sure, of course." So I get to wear one of my old Luke costumes and do a little, Star Wars lightsaber kid kind of dance with the lightsaber, and then I get shot dead by one of the bandmates.
See, I was thinking something totally different.
Yeah, there's another
I was
video.
thinking the one with the stop motion Lego one.
Oh, right, the stop motion Lego. Yeah, so they had an idea. They wanted to shoot. They wanted to do more animated and other types of music videos that didn't require the band to be there, because the actual bandmates live all across the country, and they just fly in for practice sessions in Lidditz, and then fly around the country for their tour. So they had to find ways to shoot music videos without the band being there in person, and the first thing they thought of is, let's do a Lego stop motion thing. And they came to me and they said, have you ever made action figures? I said, well, I haven't made any, but I've been playing with toys my whole life, and that's my pedigree. And they said, well, we need band versions of the band as Legos, so we can send them to the stop motion animator over in London and make this stop motion. And I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. But I think I had maybe 2 or 3 days to make all of the band members and all of their instruments as little Lego toy versions. And we just got the video came out a couple of weeks ago. But I think the guy had all the toys for over a year doing the stop motion, which is very, very time consuming. And yeah, it was pretty exciting. I was like, get to see the little Lego minifigures that I made for him running around and shooting rebels and
Nice.
doing all the fun stuff. But yeah, they're an incredible group of guys to work with. I'm very, very lucky and very fortunate. And
All because of a
appreciative.
friendship, right?
That's right. All because of Star Wars.
Yeah, there we go.
And speaking of another friend, Matt, how about you tell us some of the stuff that you've been working on?
Well, Star Wars wise, this, I'm, at the point where the original, the first episode was finished in 2016, and I kind of, let it go. And then I started getting phone calls from VFX guys around the world saying, oh my God, we love your story, but your special effects are hot garbage. And I'm like, I am aware. I mean, it looks awesome on your iPad or your laptop or your phone, but anything bigger than that, and because I edited on a little laptop and it looked great like this, but put it on a 90-foot screen and no way. So these guys were like, hey, how about I take your movie, just give me the green screen elements, and we'll redo all the ships and make it look like the real deal. I'm like, sold. So the past couple of years, I've been going back and forth with a couple of guys, losing the guy here and there because of work commitments or something. And finally, I landed somebody in Australia who was a hobbyist, recreating scenes from the original movies on Blender and whatnot. And now he's taken everything from scratch, because originally someone finished half of the original, and then he had to quit, and I think he got burned out. He was like the guy doing Simba's hair in Disney, but out of like 700 guys working on the hair, so this guy said, no, I want to start from scratch, because their styles are different. It's like asking, hey, Van Gogh, this Renoir guy did this thing, can you finish it? I've been working with this guy for a couple of years, and then the pandemic happened, and he was another VFX artist, was like, man, I don't want to work on that first one, you should do a second one, like, really? And then all of a sudden ideas for a second one started popping in my noodle. And then I found these guys looking for a Chewbacca across the country. And they happen to know everybody, and everybody knew everybody, and it just kind of coalesced into this thing. And we were supposed to start shooting on our first day, March 19th, 2020. And for reasons unbeknownst to me, we had to, halt that a little bit. And then we came back a year or so later, everyone very nervous, and we haven't really met each other yet or anything like that. So I didn't know if these guys are going to show up. After getting the town of Kenoi to let us, play around on this mountain of ash that looks like the desert if you get the camera low enough. And then my buddy Jeff from Rochester jumped on board and started helping out, and all these people just poured in and started helping out. And it's Star Wars, it's volunteer. I can't pay anybody, and when we can't make any money, we can't sell tickets. And that's the George Lucas deal, is you can play in the sandbox, just don't sell tickets, don't make any money, and don't make it offensive. Then you're kind of free to do what you like.
We just wanted a porta-john. Like we were just, if we were going to be in Stormtrooper all day, we want to make sure there was a porta-john there.
And that was our biggest expense was having to rent a porta potty. So
is the rumor true that you have something special for this audience to see?
Yes, you are seeing the first iteration of a new trailer. Our older trailers are on YouTube, but we have a new trailer just for you guys that I whipped together last week for this. And it's more on the heavy metal side, because I thought I'd branch away from the regular Star Wars music and do something a little bit more in your face.
Do you guys want to see this trailer that he put together?
Yeah.
Of the Han Solo Chronicles?
Yeah.
All right.
Bring your butts up, let's go. You can get on board anytime.
I believe you requested this after the second.
What do you think? Senator Solo, Ambassador Solo? What?
You almost got yourself disintegrated. You can't understand the job.
Just keep your eyes open, huh?
Ready our jump to hyperspace.
What he said.
Oh, wow. Letting go, there's a thing at the end.
That was Marcus on air guitar.
Wow.
Oh,
That's great.
okay. I was
So,
wondering who
That
that
was
was.
Marcus on air guitar.
Very cool.
I'm like, where'd that shot come from? That's great. I gotta use it.
So yeah, I mean that was a whole bunch of us over a whole bunch of days, and I mean it was. I got to be as a grown man be a stormtrooper for a day. So there's way worse things to do on however many days we did it. But
Yeah. And then eventually, we're going to be bumping this out in 8K, so we'll be able to, show it at cons like this on a 90-foot screen at different film festivals and stuff like that, and it'll look like the real deal. So that's kind of been our whole venture, and the whole idea is to, tour it around the country or wherever, and at the celebrations, and if like Ken said, if people like it, we'll make more. If people don't like it, we'll make more.
So this is a great time to give the audience a chance to ask any questions of this gaggle of knuckleheads up here.
anyone? And Sean brought us.
Response to that trailer to trot out the old cliche, most impressive.
Which cliche? You got a lot
Most
of them.
impressive.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you.
And Sean brought his Luke hand. I've been
Yeah.
looking at it the whole time, which is
Yeah, do you
right.
want to describe some of the stuff that you brought out for everybody?
So, yeah, I don't know if you're seeing some of the photos there of the Luke cosplay, but
Oh, it's like real.
this is a prosthetic Luke hand I made for the first time I wore this costume was at Star Wars Celebration in Orlando in 2017. And I had a rubber glove that was supposed to look like a robotic hand, and it just wasn't impressing anybody. So I decided instead that I'd go a prosthetic route and built this. And it's actually built from an accessibility hand for people who have had amputations, but it is puppeteered so that I can do the, Luke Skywalker poses and can grip things with it. I can hold on to a lightsaber.
That's weird.
And
So cool.
and I have, this sort of prosthetic which helps me hold or hide my hand, and I just sort of put my elbow a little further back in my cape. And the moment I walked out into the convention floor with that in Orlando, I just started getting stopped by people left and right and left and right.
You can literally be shaking hands.
Yeah. And by the end of the convention, they had me up on stage with Mark Hamill at the closing ceremonies of Star Wars Celebration. So I got to, we didn't have a chance to talk to each other, but he was making eyes at me the whole time and staring at the hand. And I was like, just kept waving at Mark.
My eyes are up here.
But yeah, I have to find stuff like that every once in a while that's just like, nobody's tried that before. Let me see if I can do something that, will get attention.
And we do have to mention the Halo stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know it's a Star Wars panel,
Right.
but the Halo stuff is remarkable.
Yeah, I've been making Halo costumes for 16 years now, and that was kind of my entryway into costume making and cosplay. It started as a Halloween costume that just got out of control, and then it
Haven't they all?
took over my life, took over my career, took over my garage, that's for sure. And so I've been making those costumes, and the ODST costumes are really what I specialize in, but I do stuff like the energy sword that's down on the table in front there. But most people know me through the Halo cosplaying, but doing the same thing over and over again kind of gets boring. I like to jump around a little bit to keep myself interested.
We're all at this table that jumping around
Yeah.
a bit is.
Yeah. So, we just try to keep it interesting and keep trying to carve out little pieces of time to do fun stuff for myself. And, it's usually stuff like this.
Nice. Any other questions for yeah, right here in front.
I've heard one actor at any rate say that it was weird acting nowadays because even when they're supposed to be at a console, like on a ship, and they're supposed to be pressing these buttons and stuff, there's nothing there, and that's all added later. So I was wondering what your impression is of what the actors are saying about whether they would rather have physical, made props like these, whatever, swords or whatever, or whether they're okay with it just being added later with CGI.
Well, I mean, to speak on that, there are room builders all over the country, Star Wars room builders. And we went to one guy, he's online as Whitey's Wicked Workshop, and he makes like the little rocker buttons in the Millennium Falcon and stuff. And he had the whole console. That's where we got those close-up shots of hitting the buttons. But I had to put our own, never mind. But, and he also has a space door, a hydraulic, he's an engineer by trade. So he has a door that he goes, Alexa, open space door, and this is all in his basement. And it looks like the back of the back room inside of a Star Destroyer or something, because he's got the walls all lit up with the shapes and everything. And, I went in there just to shoot the console and get Chewie and I sitting at the thing, but we were there all night shooting all the other stuff too, because once again, that inspired us. Well, what could happen here? What should we be doing in here? Well, how about we do a thing where this happens? And now we have more story, and that's usually how it happens, is you get a little inspiration and it inspires you to come up with new scenarios in which for your characters to get into. But it's so much better pressing the buttons.
Well, and to speak to Star Wars, and to speak, if you watch the behind the scenes of The Mandalorian, it's almost coming back to double. Now they have the big LED screens where they can actually project the background, and then the computer fixes it later. So it's almost coming back to that old style of Hollywood where they would make it in these big sound stages. So now you have prop people like Sean making physical props intermixed with the green screen or LED, because we out at Celebration Anaheim, they had all the props from The Mandalorian. It was amazing how many practical props they had now. So, and I think they heard what you were saying, you know, the actors, and they've done things like that. I mean, they had to. They have a silver Mandalorian that's going to reflect everything, you know. So.
And they've worked hard to blend those things.
Yes.
So we as the fans, when we watch it, we're hard pressed to find out what's a real button and what's not. And speaking of buttons, I'm going to push the button now.
Yes.
For our giveaway. Are you okay with that?
You're in charge of the giveaway because you know.
So just out of curiosity, is there anyone celebrating a birthday this month? In May. I've got no May birthdays in here other than me. Okay. How about a birthday in June or April? We have a winner in the back.
Yes.
You mind coming up here? We have a prize for you. This was made by our very own maker, Mike.
So this is a clone helmet to start. So you'll have to do some work. Okay, we're giving you homework. Your prize is homework.
But it's the best kind of homework.
I tell you, this is also what I learned from people like Sean, who are skilled makers. We pass it on and try to help you. So now
I have a question. How do you make this?
So that is a resin cast. So I had bought a mold from someone who made it years ago, and so it's a resin cast, and so you'll just do some cutouts, and you can build it whatever. You can contact us on social media, and we will help you with anything you need to do. But that can be anything you want it to be. It can be a custom one, anything, and we will help you. Again, you do some cutting and some painting, and you can go nuts with that.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And so, while we have a few moments left, if each of you would be kind enough to let everyone know how they can keep track of you, whether it's social media, YouTube, whatever.
For me, it's the weekly podcast on YouTube. It's under either Star Wars Geek Girl, that's my daughter's podcast, I'm not, or the Inflatable Falcon, or Hinton Family, or Hinton Star Wars Family on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. My name's Mike Hinton. Just look me up, you send me a message. You know, I am here to help.
You can find.
Yes, Matt did bring stickers.
I brought stickers, and I also have cards with the little QR code where you can see our old trailer that's more Star Wars music based. You can find me at HanSoloChronicles.com. And also you could find me at Matt M on YouTube, or just look up Han Solo Chronicles on YouTube. And I won't be posting the movie right away on YouTube. You'll just see trailers and stuff and things like this. Definitely come to the cons, because I'm trying to get us on some bigger screens, so we could get that old theater 1977 feel, that kind of blew our minds back in the day, as opposed to looking at everything on this.
All right, we got to move on to Sean. Matt will talk for now.
Sorry.
I'm at Costume Dork on Instagram, and you can also find my Etsy store at etsy.com/shop/Sean Bradley Studio, and I'm also on Facebook. Just look for the profile image with the Star Wars stuff, or somebody being silly. That's probably me.
Because it changes from time to time to time.
Yeah.
And I'm Ken. You can find me as Ken Bishop on Facebook. I'm on Wednesday nights on YouTube, the Inflatable Falcon, co-hosted with Mike. I run my own show called The Rambling Star Wars Fan, where you get to hear this voice talk about all sorts of random stuff, whether it's talking about the new books or the nitty-gritty details of the behind-the-scenes stories where the movies almost didn't happen. And I cannot say thank you enough for all of you coming in and joining this panel on Sunday, May 5th. I hope you have a great rest of the convention, and may the 4th be with you.
Yep. And listen, reach out to us if you need help with anything, with Star Wars, or if you're thinking of starting a podcast, we are more than welcome. We have our other partner, John can't make it. He's from Ohio. He does a podcast called The Beskar Bucket, and my daughter does a podcast. She's almost done it for 9 years now, called Star Wars Geek Girl. We will also be up at the table with the droid builders. So if you want to come talk to us then, we have a few minutes here before we have to clear out for the other thing. But yeah, we really appreciate you guys coming. So thank you very much.
Yeah. And
if anybody wants to come down and take a look at some of the stuff that I brought on the table out front here, I'd be hanging around for a few more minutes and show off the prosthetic hand and all the other stuff. Sure, absolutely.
I'm so happy the covenant is gone. I'm moving on. I'm so happy that it's over now. The pain is gone. I'm jumping in my ride. I'm heading out tonight. I'm solo. I'm on solo. I'm on solo. I'm on solo. Solo. Picking up my plastic, putting it on my side. I'm jumping in my falcon, boogie at my side. I'm solo. I'm on solo.